Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbos is a very special Shabbos. Shabbos Parshat Vayechi. Shabbos of, and he lived, Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim. It's Shabbos Chazak, as we are finishing the first book of Genesis, of the 5 books of Moses. To even think that just 2 months ago was Simchas Torah, when this war started 75 days, was it 80 days ago at this point. And now we are at where we began book of Genesis, and now we're at the end of the book of Genesis, and we're still very much in this war. Still have a long way to go in Gaza, and then unfortunately it seems like the north is, on our trip, was the constant reminder that the north will probably be next, unless Hezbollah moves off the border of Israel. And it's a Shabbos in which we come back after this incredible mission 3, in which we brought tremendous chizuk. We brought 50 bags of love to our soldiers and to our many of our reserves from our community. And the opening of this week's parsha opens up Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, that Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim. And the rabbis say that these were the best years of Yaakov's life. And so the rabbis ask a question: how could it be that these were the best years of Yaakov's life, living in Egypt? Egypt was the worst place. It was the enemy of Israel. It was the worst place to be. It became the place in which we ultimately became slaves to Pare, for the deepest of the exiles in Egypt. And so how could it be that this was the best years of Yaakov's life? And yes, of course, it says the answer is because Yosef, he was reunited with Yosef after so many years of mourning with him. But that could have been, just 1 year or 2 years being with Yosef. Why were all these years the best time of his life? And there's another aspect to this. After everything that the brothers did to Yosef, and that Joseph was now the viceroy of Egypt, he could have easily taken for granted all of the remember everything that his brothers did to him. But instead, they stay united the entire time. And when he saw that all brothers were united, when all 12 tribes were united, it didn't make a difference if they were in Israel, if they were in Egypt, if they could have been in prison, the worst place in the world. But with everyone standing together, everyone standing biyachad, that was the best time of his life. And I think it's a very powerful message that coming back after this trip, there's one constant thing that you'll see when you travel around Israel, and that is the massive signs, biyachad nenatzeach, together we'll be victorious. And it's something we've been hearing for the last 2 months, the last 2.5 months really, since this war began. But it's true in every aspect, in every place you go. And the message that we keep on saying when we come back, it's the love that the soldiers are feeling, and the love in the people that we visited in Kfar Aza, and the people that we visited in the refugee hotels in Tel Aviv, and the refugee hotels from Kfar Aza in Shfaim, and from the north to the south. Every time that you'll see someone, you just give them a hug. The hundreds of hugs that you gave out on this trip. Forget about the gear and the vests and the food, the barbecues, the concerts. It's all amazing. We lift up their spirits, but the hugs that we gave out on this trip. One nation, one heart. Am echad b'lev echad. And we've heard this concept of Am echad b'lev echad, but there has never been a time in Israel that the Jewish people have been so united. And even though it's obviously a tremendously challenging time, and every day we read more horrific stories, and today's New York Times elaborates on this terrible rape that happened on October 7th. And we saw with our own eyes the destruction of Kfar Aza. We spoke about to the people. We met with the wife of her husband who was murdered, and her brother-in-law was murdered, and how her mother was in a safe room for 30 hours without any food, and the incredible miracles that they've had. But the reality is that even with all this tragedy that you saw in Israel, the unity, it almost feels like leaving Israel was, again, as the many people on our trip share with us, this was the hardest time for them to leave. This was the greatest trip to Israel. And not just because of the tremendous energy that was there, but because of the feeling that is there of unity. And so when we say Yaakov's best years were in Egypt, it wasn't because he was in Egypt. It could have been anywhere. But it was the fact that the brothers were united. That is what gave it the greatest of energy. That is what gave him the greatest of his last 17 years of his life. And so as we go into the Shabbos Chazak, V'nis Chazek, Our brothers and sisters in Israel know that our communities are united. We have we met on our flight home. We had a young soldier who was injured in Gaza. He's joining us tonight for dinner. This is the common theme of every single Jewish person that you meet, and every single home that we saw, and every individual and every soldier. And we got to keep up the strength and this unity, and then for sure God will give us the great victory very soon. B'yachad ninatzeach, together we're going to be victorious, and we'll maybe celebrate very soon the next book, and that is the redemption of the Jewish people leaving Egypt. Very soon in our days, amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone, and we'll have the ultimate victory, the ultimate time, which will have peace and security. Shabbat shalom, everyone, and we'll see you tonight for our New Year Shabbat dinner, together with a young injured soldier from the Kfir Brigade, and tomorrow a wonderful Kiddush where we're going to hear from some of our members that returned from this very special trip.